Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Ashto Tarasarasisi Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Angoranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Mummy there. Mummy there. Ah. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay. So you usually start with people having any questions, is it? So does anyone have any questions? Mimi, you have a question?
So, at the very beginning of my Krishna consciousness journey, I asked somebody if Paramatma was present even in the metta, right? And they said yes. And then I didn't think about it anymore. And then a few days ago, I read that Paramatma is present in every atom of the creation. So I thought, but how is that possible? If Paramatma is present, that means that Atma is present. So the superior energy is present in that atom. How is it possible that that atom, that thing is not conscious, not living, and we consider it inferior energy in some kind of way? Yeah, that's my question.
Supersoul, there doesn't have to be a jiva present within with supersoul in everything. Everything is actually there's first of all, you have to accept that there's an inconceivability about what we're talking about here. We can't even conceive of supersoul being present within our hearts, what to speak of all pervasive. But everything is actually resting in supersoul. That's another inconceivable concept. But not only is supersoul present within every atom, supersoul is present in the space between every atom. Supersoul is all pervasive, everywhere. And first verse of Isha Upanishad sums it up. Everything within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. Everything. Everything. Controlled. The controlling of the Lord is through his omnipresence. He's omnipresent. There's nowhere where the Lord is not present. There's nowhere where the Lord is not aware of what is happening. That's inconceivable. But it's not, to the point of your question, it's not that because supersoul is present within the atom that there has to be a jiva there. He's present with every jiva as well. There's well, as we go through that, there's a nice verse. As you said, it leads to a verse in the Bhagavad-gita. In the 10th chapter, the opulence of the Absolute. The 10th chapter is where we get the Chatur Sloki of the Bhagavad-gita, the four, what I call the seed verses of the whole Bhagavad-gita, 8, 9, 10, and 11, which you can look at. Well, Krishna says, I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Then we get, I think it's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We get 7 verses spoken by Arjuna glorifying Krishna. I'll just read the English. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest, the greatest. All the great sages, such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas, confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. Indeed, You alone know yourself by your own internal potency. You alone know yourself by your own internal potency. O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. So that's the verse that I wanted to refer to. We can just listen to the purport. The Supreme Lord Krishna can be known by persons who are in a relationship with him through the discharge of devotional service, like Arjuna and his followers. Persons of demonic or atheistic mentality cannot know Krishna. Mental speculation that leads one away from the Supreme Lord is a serious sin, and one who does not know Krishna should not try to comment on Bhagavad-gita. Bhagavad-gita is the statement of Krishna, and since it is the science of Krishna, it should be understood from Krishna as Arjuna understood it. It should not be received from atheistic persons. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 11, it is stated, Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmati bhagavan iti sabjate. The supreme truth is realized in three aspects, as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and at last as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So at the last stage of understanding the absolute truth, one comes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A common man, or even a liberated man, who has realized impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma may not understand God's personality. Such men, therefore, may endeavor to understand the Supreme Person from the verses of Bhagavad-gita, which are being spoken by this person, Krishna. Sometimes the impersonalists accept Krishna as Bhagavan, or they accept his authority. Yet many liberated persons cannot understand Krishna as Purushottam, the Supreme Person. Therefore, Arjuna addresses him as Purushottam. Yet one still may not understand that Krishna is the father of all living entities. Therefore, Arjuna addresses him as Bhuta Bhavana. And if one comes to know him as the father of all living entities, still one may not know him as the supreme controller. Therefore, he is addressed here as Bhutesha, the supreme controller of everyone. And even if one knows Krishna as the supreme controller of all living entities, still one may not know that he is the origin of all the demigods. Therefore, he is addressed here as Deva Deva, the worshipful God of all demigods. And even if one knows him as the worshipful God of all demigods, one may not know that he is the supreme proprietor of everything. Therefore, he is addressed as Jagatpati. Thus, the truth about Krishna is established in this verse by the realization of Arjuna, and we should follow in the footsteps of Arjuna to understand him, Krishna, as he is. Swayam evatmanatmanam veta tvam purushottama bhutta bhavana bhuttesha deva deva jagatpate. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency, O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. So one may know many things about Krishna, but one will never know everything about Krishna, or understand. Krishna is always inconceivable. So just the notion that as Super Soul he's present within every atom and in the space between every atom, that's an inconceivable thing. We can never understand that. You can have a conception of it, that, oh yes, that's one of Krishna's qualities, one of Krishna's potencies, that he has expanded himself as super soul within the atom and within the space in the space between every atom. Simultaneously, he's expanded himself into the heart of every body as the Anumanta, Upadrashta, Anumanta, the overseer and the permitter in regard to every single jiva in the material world. So if you want to actually make progress in Krishna consciousness, you have to accept the inconceivability of the absolute truth. Lord Chaitanya presents his philosophy as inconceivable, simultaneous, one and difference. Inconceivable, simultaneous, one and difference. So the idea of conception, I think you've heard me talk about that before. The idea of conception means containment. Like a woman conceives a child within the womb, and it's contained within the womb. And then we may have a concept in our minds, so it's contained within the mind. So if we want to think that we can have a full conception of Krishna, that means within our minds we can contain Krishna. But we can never contain Krishna within our minds. Krishna always remains beyond conception. But he reveals himself. And we all know, even Vishnu in Vaikuntha doesn't know the activities of Goloka. We all live on a need-to-know basis. Yes? So what you needed to know is whether there's a jiva with the Paramatma in the atom. My understanding is there isn't. There's just Paramatma on his own. But he's all pervasive. He's everywhere. There's nowhere where there isn't Paramatma. But also, inconceivably, everything is contained within the Paramatma. The super soul contains everything within the material world and is directing everything. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes, Ram. Thinking again. How long have you been a devotee?
About material science, when they look at what's so-called material energy, that, as you would know, it's mostly space. Like, apparently you have the nucleus of the atom, and then the nearest particle would be like if you had an orange at the center of a football field, the nearest particle would be out on the boundary. And those particles are still tiny. If you blew up the nucleus to the size of an orange, the nearest particle is the size of a sesame seed or something like that. And there's a football field in between them. It's all just held together by this something's there, Paramatma, that's inconceivable. Also, there was a class the other morning about Paramatma. I don't know if you were there or not. And he was saying how the Paramatma was there on his own, standing. And I asked the question, as a new devotee, we were told, well, Krishna never appears on his own. He's always got associates. And Krishna Kirtan got back to me. He said he'd just listening to a lecture in Mayapur that day, and Rameshwara was saying, he was quoting Srila Prabhupada, Paramatma was standing there within the heart with all of his associates.
I don't need that.
You don't need that one.
No,
Sorry.
No. I've got one.
Any question?
Inconceivable. Inconceivable. Actually, you are inconceivable. Krishna quotes that as one of the qualities of the jiva. in the second chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. That, the approximation that's given is that the size of one jiva is 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair. That's just to give us an approximate understanding. But within that, you can understand that you can never actually determine the size of a jiva, because no matter how powerful a measuring tool you have to measure the tip of a hair, you can always measure it more finely. So if you get to 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair, how small? It's inconceivably small. So we're inconceivable to ourselves, actually. We're inconceivable to ourselves. How can, and Prabhupada makes the point, so much potency in one little speck. The smallest thing in existence is the jiva. That's us. Smallest thing in existence. But the jiva can be found within the heart of the tiniest creature or the largest creature. You get an idea about how potent this material energy is to cover us. When Adi Purana states that the potency of one jiva is like the potency of 1,000 suns rising in the sky simultaneously. So just imagine how dull, how powerful this material energy is, that it's dulled us down to the state we're in now. The potency of one jiva is equivalent, an approximation, not even an exact measurement. Just the idea of 1,000 suns rising in the sky simultaneously is one jiva. So both things are inconceivable, how small you are and how great you are. But we are just mamari vangsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. We are just fragmental parts and parcels of Krishna. So Krishna's potencies, parasya shaktiya vivadayava shruyate, innumerable and inconceivable potencies. Krishna can do anything. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Krishna can do anything.
All the folks at home want to hear you.
Sorry?
All the folks at home want to hear you.
How would you answer then a question? Krishna can do anything. But in the material world we have things like cancer, babies dying, not even a year old. There's some thing, a little bug that can get into a kid's eye that can make them blind. The material world's not always a happy place. So how would you answer that? Krishna can do anything, but the material world is structured as it is.
Well, there's a very nice purport in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, verse number 15. We'll look at it in a minute, but that's like the old the old question of why does God let terrible things happen to good people? If God can do anything, why did he create a world where such terrible things happen? First of all, this is, again, such a question is based on a poor fund of knowledge. The first thing we need to understand about this world is this is not all in all. This is not all there is. And to understand why we're here is actually the beginning of self-realization. To understand that We are spiritual beings undergoing a material experience. And we don't need to be here. We came to the material world by choice, and we are full of desires to enjoy the material world. But we don't know where we came from. We've forgotten all of that. We live in a world based upon forgetfulness of our actual real nature. Material world is a temporary place, and it's full of miseries. That's the nature of the material world. And it's not because, God messed up here. He didn't know what he was doing. He made a few glitches, and now, he's raining down all this disease and pestilence on us. Or we're entangled in all this because God didn't do a good job. It's not that at all. This purport you can all have a look at yourself. But in the verse 15 of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, and the last verse of the purport says, the embodied living soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. That bewilderment is the identification of the self with matter, not just with the body, but with the whole world. Identity, the word identify, identity means, in essence, the same. We identify ourselves as the same as everything we see. And that is, all we see is matter. But we're not material entities. We're material entities. We're spiritual entities, entities who are covered by matter. Can I get some more water, please? Is it possible? Would you mind, Tom? Thank you. There's a long and complicated answer to this question, but it begins with this understanding that we are spiritual beings living in the material world. And we don't need to be in the material world. The material world is not our home, and it's not where we have to be. We chose to come to the material world. Again, that's another big subject. Why we're here is another big discussion. But the fact of the matter is, we need to understand in the first instance what Krishna says to Arjuna, that never was there a time when we did not exist, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. And then the next thing he says, that the embodied living being is passing in this body from childhood to youth to old age, and passes into another body at death. And the self-realized living being, the self-realized soul, is not bewildered by that change. But we're in a bewildered situation because we've forgotten what we are. In order to forget what we are, thank you, we have to forget Krishna and our relationship with Krishna. And the way that relationship is enacted. We are part and parcel of Krishna, eternal living beings, and we exist to be in loving relationship with Krishna. So Prabhupada says here, so the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. In order to come to the material world in the first place, we have to forget our actual identity. I said it, identity means the same. In relationship with the same, we find our identity. So, it doesn't happen in schools these days, but when I went to school, we all had to do the oath of allegiance to the flag every week. And I am an Australian. I love my country. I honor her flag. I promise to obey her laws. So an identity is created. You're an Australian. You're a boy. You're a girl. These are all designated identities that are put upon us, but they're all temporary. They only last for as long as we're in this body. And this situation has come about as a result of us becoming bewildered in contact with the three modes of material nature. Prior to that, we forgot Krishna. So when we forget Krishna, because we're meant to love Krishna, and then we've forgotten him, we immediately miss him because we need someone to love or something to love. That's what happens in the material world. It's not just people, it's things that we love as well. In the spiritual world, there's no things in that inanimate sense. Everything is animate. So we have or everything is based on personal relationship. But we become bewildered because we have an immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness. We became attracted somehow or another not somehow or another, by misuse of our independence. We became attracted to and chose to enter this material world. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord and is thus entrapped by nescience. In that entrapped situation, we come under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Guna Sangha, it is called. Guna Sangha means the association of the modes of nature. And this arises because of our desire to enjoy the material world. But the material world is not a place of pleasure, it's a place of suffering. But our illusion is that we can turn all that around and make it a place of pleasure. As a result of that, as the verse goes, we meet with good and evil in various species of life. It's all temporary, but it's just a total entrapment of the soul in this bewildered condition of misidentifying himself with matter. And matter is a temporary place full of miseries. And that applies throughout the entire universe. But until and unless we hear from authoritative sources and we become submissive, then this knowledge is not available to us. One has to have a sincere desire to know, why am I suffering? Why is there suffering? Why do I try so hard to understand how to enjoy myself in the material world and make so much endeavor to be happy here, but always end up in this perplexed state of misery? Why is that? And until and unless there's a sincere desire to know that, then this knowledge that we're discussing here is never revealed. You have to want to know. You have to want to know why is this so? And you can't just speculate, it's because God blew it and didn't make didn't work, or God's just, if there is a God, why is he subjecting me to all this misery? And we don't understand our own responsible role in that. And then people say, well, how can a little baby know? Well, the little baby is just the present body that eternal soul is in. Just like here we have little Madhavi. She's just a little baby. But we were all little babies. And we grow up to be adults. And the sad situation of the world that we're in now is the basic knowledge of our actual eternal existence is not a part of our education. And that's violence. That's violence. In chapter 10, verses 5 and 6, where are we? Just after the pictures. No, just before the pictures. Krishna lists a number of things. Where are we? Is it 10:5? 10:5? 10, 10:5. 10:4 and 5, not 5 and 6. 5 and 6 is another couplet in the 12th chapter. So in these two verses, Krishna lists several things: intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. And in regard to ahimsa, where is it? Ahimsa, non-violence, means that one should not do anything which will put others into misery or confusion. Material activities that are promoted by so many politicians, sociologists, philanthropists, and so on do not produce very good results because the politicians and philanthropists have no transcendental vision. They do not know what is actually beneficial for human society. Ahimsa means that people should be trained in such a way that the full utilization of the human body can be achieved. The human body is meant for spiritual realization. So any movement or any commissions that do not further that end commit violence on the human body. That which furthers the future spiritual happiness of the people in general is called non-violence. So, any movement or any commissions, like the education department, is not teaching us this knowledge. We're not learning this. As Prahlad Maharaj says in the 7th canto, we should be learning this from the moment we are learning, 5 years of age. But we don't learn this. So all of us, we're starting a long time after it. We should. But the difficulty is, because of the strong identification with the material body as the self now, and the only, generally speaking, the only relationship people want to have with God is how to make my material life better. And then when it's all over, take me to heaven, which will be even better in terms of the idea of sense gratification. Then everybody's living in a bewildered state. They're not living in the truth. They're living in the illusion. So it's very difficult to explain this. Why do little children get terrible diseases and die and so why does this happen? why is somebody starving somewhere in the world and somebody else is living like a king somewhere else, or even next door to each other? You see that in Mumbai. You got the slums, and then you got these towering penthouses and so forth. Why is that happening? Why does God allow that to happen? Well, then there's another dimension of understanding that people don't have, and that is that we're involved in a game of reward and punishment here in the material world. It's like a huge game board, the material world. That it's like, well, snakes and ladders actually comes from India. And it's to help children understand that you do good things, you go up, you do bad things, you go down. But basically, it's a gamble one way or the other, because the whole game is based upon taking a chance. So once you step into the material world, anything can happen. In the Krishna book, there's the story of how the princes, they go out from Dwarka and they find a disused well, and they're shouting down the well, and then they see, oh, there's a huge lizard down here. And it turns out that that's the body of a great king who, as a king, he gave charity to one Brahmin, and one of the cows that he gave in charity strayed back into his herd, and then he gave it to another Brahmin, which is a breach of Vedic etiquette, breach of Dharma, that particular Dharma. And he ended up being cursed by the first Brahmin to become a lizard in a well. So we're playing a very very dangerous game by entering the material world. And Maya's power, the power of the illusory energy, is so great. She can cover us with this illusion and then throw us anywhere she likes, through 8,400,000 species of life, through trillions of planets, through trillions of creations, without us for one moment hearing the truth of our existence. But that is all based upon our desire. Going back to what you were saying about supersouls in our heart, the overseer and the permitter. And Krishna says later in the 18th chapter, Ishvara Savabhutanam Hriddesha Junatishtati. I'm sitting in the heart of every living entity, and I'm directing their wanderings according to their desires. I mean, we're in the material world in the first place because of a desire. But in touch with the mode of passion, that gives rise to countless desires to enjoy in the material world. And this has been going on, Prabhupada says, since time immemorial. So we're very entangled, especially by the time we get to the Kali Yuga. We're very entangled in the illusory existence. And therefore, even getting to first base, Krishna makes this point also in the second chapter when he's describing the nature of the soul, from verses 212 to 230. Very important verse in that is what he says in verse 29, where he says, some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. This is what we're faced with in the world today. Because people have become so materially attached, it is very, very difficult to have someone understand their actual nature, that there is a transcendental body that never grows old, that never dies, that never gets sick, that is full of knowledge and blissful consciousness. And that there is a world in which everyone is like that. And that is the place we come from. Some people like say, wow, that's amazing. Other people, you can explain it over and over again, they just don't get it. Because the material attachment is very, very strong now. And therefore, Krishna says, free from attachment, fear, and anger. We must become free from attachment, fear, and anger by acquiring complete knowledge of reality. But that's only pursued by a very few living entities, because most people, most entities, the majority of entities in the material world want to stay. They want to be here. They want to do whatever they can to improve their, constantly acting to improve their situation in the material world. And having no conception that there's anything other than this. Manushyanam sahasreshu kasyid yatati sidaye yatatamapi sidanam kasyinmam viditattvataha. There are many, many people striving for perfection in all kinds of endeavors. And out of those who do achieve perfection in spiritual cultivation of spiritual knowledge, hardly one of those actually knows the complete story. One may develop understanding of Brahman. One may have an understanding of Paramatma. But that doesn't mean one will automatically understand the energetic source of everything, Bhagavat, and realize through devotional service what one's eternal relationship with him is. So that's the point Prabhupada's making in that purport to 5:15. Where are we? We'll finish with that, I think. I'll read the whole paragraph. Therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment in this material world. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord and is thus entrapped by nescience. And under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. This is the prime subject of education. It must be the prime subject of education. Education means educe. Duce means to lead you out of the ignorance of material identification. Like the aphorism for the whole Vedic literature is tamasima jyotiyagama. Don't stay in the darkness of ignorance, come into the light of knowledge. But that light of knowledge is like a light on a dimmer switch. It can be turned up and up and up and up. And Super Soul will take you as far as you want to go. But it's a tricky business because we're still in the material world and we can still, at any time, misuse our independence. Prabhupada says in one discussion in his rooms in Los Angeles where the man is asking this question about why do these things go on, and Prabhupada says, why are we in the material world? Because we've misused our independence. And then somebody says, well, isn't that very foolish to come to this world? He said, yes. You can use your independence and become a fool. So he says, a fool can become a devotee. But he said, a devotee can again become a fool. It all depends upon how you use your independence at any given time. When he says to Arjuna at the end of Gita, you consider all this and then you do whatever you like. In a lecture on Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 6, Savai Pulsam Parodamo, in New Vrindavan in 1972. In that lecture, Prabhupada got to that point of explaining that Krishna said to Arjuna, you can do whatever you like. And then he says that you can do whatever you like is always there. Always. Because the essence of the relationship with Krishna is love. And that can't be forced. It must be voluntary. You have to independently choose. But you can change your mind. You can use your independence any way you like. But we have to come to that understanding that we have agency, and by the misuse of our agency, we've come to this material world where we don't need to be alive. The soul is animating matter. Matter can't move unless it's touched by spirit. So we don't need to have a material body to exist. We exist eternally, but we've forgotten about the platform of eternal existence. And we need to be educated about that, so then we can make a choice of whether we want to go there again or not. Hare Krishna. But that's a great subject matter that we have to hear over and over again to get it straight. Getting straight. When one is enlightened by that knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, that knowledge lights up everything as the sun lights up the daytime. When one's intelligence, faith, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes cleansed of all misgivings by virtue of complete knowledge. Then one proceeds straight on the path of liberation. This is education. Otherwise, 20 years of schooling, and they put you on the day shift. Look out, kid. This is not education. This is schooling to make you, as the song goes, just another brick in the wall of somebody else's plan of how to dominate the material world, which dominates everybody anyway. So this is education. And it's open to everyone, but hardly anyone's interested. You have to become, as Prabhupada says, exhausted with material life. Like the hamster within the wheel, running and running and running, and getting nowhere. 10:02. I got to do another program at 6, so maybe 5 minutes more? 7 minutes, all right. Well, thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.